Okay, so folks, I'm Jay Gohil. I'm the GDSC lead for PDEU. I'll actually share my screen in a while, but it's just that I really hope that you folks gain a lot of knowledge from this session because it's all about Hacktoberfest 2021 and open source. I wouldn't really get deep into the whole aspect of open source because I think there are better people who will tell you folks about Hacktoberfest, the process, Git and GitHub, and all those things. So I'll just go ahead and quickly give you a glance of GDSC chapter of PDEU. All right, so if you can see the screen, that's me, Jay Gohil. I'm the GDSC lead, among a few other things. I wouldn't focus really on myself, so I'll move forward. He is the GDSC advisor of our university, Jay Rank. He was the ex-DSC lead, among a lot of other good achievements. We also have a faculty advisor, Dr. Hardik Patel, who is the assistant professor for ICT. And we have really reputed GDSC mentors, J.G. Prasad, who is the CEO of Mentro, and he is a software engineer at Vedantu, and he was also GCI mentor at TensorFlow as well as GSOC mentor. We have Sahadev Bose and Debayan Ganguly, who are also reputed people who work in the industry. So I'm really glad that they are our GDSC mentors. And finally, we have these departments in our GDSC chapter. We have AI/ML, application development, blockchain, cybersecurity, content team, open source, and website development. And for open source, we have Mihir and Nachiket here in the meeting right now, who are a major part of this meeting and who have made this whole event possible. So I really thank them for doing that. And in case you folks want to just keep in connection with us, then this is the GDSC GitHub account, and this is our official page. So yeah, that's kind of it. I'll actually share the Linktree link in the chat box so you folks can join us. And other than that, I really hope that you folks gain massive amount of knowledge on open source, because open source is the next big thing. A lot of organizations choose people who have actually worked on open source projects, who actually have experience in development. So, and Hacktoberfest is really the platform, or I would say the time of the year when a lot of people begin their open source journey. So I really hope that you folks do that and you start an open source journey right after this event. So yeah, that's kind of it. Thanks, folks. I hope you have a wonderful event. I'll just quickly share my screen. Yeah.
Thank you for introducing all of the GDSC leads. Thank you for making this possible. So moving on to the main event now, I would ask. Okay, sorry, wait. Abhishek is still left. Really sorry for that. Abhishek, please.
Take no worries, Nachiket.
Sorry.
Hey folks, good to be here. My name is Abhishek Manjanwal, and I am the GDSC lead of Manipal University, Jaipur. At GDSC MUJ, we believe that to teach is to learn twice over, and that is something we'd like to follow in all our events. We host a lot of international speakers in our events, so do make sure to check that out. I'm really excited about FOSStober, as I believe this is a very wonderful collab for you all to learn more about open source, how open source works, how exactly do you start contributing to open source projects, and how are large projects such as TensorFlow maintained. I hope you make use of this opportunity to connect, learn, and grow with each other. Over to you, Nachiket.
Yeah, thank you for passing it on to me. So let's start with today's main lecture sort of thing, where we actually tell you about what open source is, why open source is, and what you can do to contribute to open source. Right. So the event, like the name of our event is FOSStober, which is basically free and open source software, and we just added the Tober from Hacktober thing. So yeah, moving on to the next slide, I think we'll just get into what is open source, right? So the first thing that many people are not clear about is the definition of open source. So OSS, or open source software, is a computer software that is released under a license in which the copyright holder grants user the rights to use, study, change, and distribute the software and its source code to anyone and for any purpose. What this means is that you basically have a piece of software or a piece of project or a piece of tool that you'd like to share freely over the internet to as many people as possible without having to deal with, without actually any sort of monetary gains. This is a really important thing is because this is something that enables people to modify those things and involve them, involve other diverse groups and think and take the projects in a different direction. Right. And since it's usually free and is free of any hidden costs, open source projects and open source organizations tend to monetize themselves by having some add-in or opt-in telemetry, which means basically you can sponsor them just like you sponsor your YouTube creators, right? But for code. Now, open source is highly vested in its community because it's a community of individuals who really love to, share things, who really love to modify things and better and make things better for the society. So that then comes the point, why is open source important? Right. Open source is important because it's a community-driven initiative that is sustained only because there are developers who are giving their software for free, as I said. Right. And this is really different from how things used to work before the concept of open source came into the picture. That was because during the start of the computer era boom, many companies tried to monetize and monopolize the whole industry by putting out software that were just proprietary to them, and the source code was hidden to only the organization. This was really hampering the innovation and the advancement of technology overall, which was one of the reasons why open source as a concept grew in, I would say, its scale, right? And since open source is not owned by anyone, you cannot own open source. Again, it's something that a community has. It is a concept. It is a ideology that you spread your knowledge with other people without the aspect of monetizing on top of it, right? And that's the reason that the aim of open source is usually to enable everyone to build better, bigger things that profit no one else but the user itself. Right, moving on to the next slide. Hardik, can you move on? What is
Right.
Hacktober Fest? And that will be taken by.
I hope I'm audible.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I'll open the website for Hacktober Fest right now. Right. So let's now that Nachiket talked us about and told us about what open source is, why is it really important. Let's see, our highlighting event that is Hacktober Fest. How does it really come into context? So for starters, Hacktoberfest is basically a month-long event which takes place every year in October. And it is primarily conducted by this company called DigitalOcean and also sponsored by like other partners which support it. Right. So Hacktoberfest was originally started about 7 years ago, and like this is its 8th year, and its primary aim is to basically give back to the community of open source developers. Since, as Nachiket mentioned, that open source relies on its community, and for most of the part, the people who are actively contributing to it, they really get nothing out of it in terms of like any physical gains or anything. So Hacktoberfest was launched, as I said, as an event to give back to the community. And let's actually have a look, what that means. So let's start off by clicking on the start hacking button. And this is also how you will be starting off your journey into open source. So I'll click on this particular button. And right now, obviously, I am logged in. But if you are someone, who will be starting for the first time, then it would ask you to link your GitHub account or your GitLab account. or like alternatively, you can even like link both of those accounts if you want to. And also after that, there would be also one thing which it would ask you. I'll just wait. Yeah. So it would also ask you if you are just a participant, maintainer, or like an event organizer. So what this means is that if you are going to be someone whose primary aim is to contribute into other people's software, then your role is of the participant. So you will only need to check that. Whereas if you are an individual or you are part of an organization who currently has some open source projects listed under their belt, then you'll also need to check out maintainer in order to have like the proper get your proper contribution recognized by DigitalOcean. And like for the last part, if you are someone like us who is going to organize events directly related to Hacktoberfest or open source communities, then you can also choose to be an event organizer as well. Right. So once you'll save this information, you will be getting a page which will be similar like this. And so this page is your profile page for Hacktoberfest, and this is where all of your contributions which you will be making would be listed. Right now, as you can see, I've already made about like 7 pull requests, but one thing which you'll notice is that only 2 of these are actually being considered as a valid by DigitalOcean. Right. So I'll talk about what pull requests are and how they are made in the later part of the session. But for now, I'll just cover on the fact as to what contributions are and how, why does it matter really right here in this profile. So anytime you will be making a pull request between this time period of like 1 October and 31st October, that would get counted as a contribution, and that would start showing up here in your profile page. So say, for example, I made these 2 particular pull requests, right? So one was this particular pull request which I made on 1st October, and this was something which I made last night. So these pull requests, as soon as they would get merged, they would at least be qualified enough to become a valid pull request. But one thing to make sure is that the repository to which you are going to contribute is going to have these 3 particular topics in it. Since these stand as the some one of the qualification points for your pull request to be marked as like a valid pull request. Similarly, like say, for example, if I would show this particular repository, this did not have, this does not have the topics listed on it, nor the particular Hacktoberfest tags. So even though my contribution was merged, I did not get the point for it. That is something which you will need to make sure, and I'll also talk about this regarding our when we do the example pull request later in this session. So basically, just to recap, any pull request which you will be making in the time frame of 1st October to 31st October is going to be any valid pull request. As I must point out, it is going to be calculated as a valid pull request. And now, touching on the fact that DigitalOcean aims to give back to the community. So as soon as you will be having 4 valid pull requests, at least 4 valid pull requests, you stand a chance to win the swag merge, which is provided by DigitalOcean directly. So basically, that swag merge is DigitalOcean's way to give back to the community, and that kit has like T-shirt in it and a bunch of cool stickers also. And starting from last year, now alternative what you can do is that instead of actually opting in to receive a T-shirt, you can choose to plant a tree instead, right? So Hacktober, like DigitalOcean will get a tree planted on your behalf, and you can even read more regarding the whole tree process and everything on their page itself. So this is basically to make help make the environment more carbon neutral when it comes to producing the swag kits and everything. So this was a very basic overview, and we'll also have a look as to how the actual whole the process takes place in order to contribute to open source. But for right now, I'll hand back over to Nachiket in order to touch upon some more points.
Thank you for getting it back to me. So when we are talking about open source, some of you might be actually curious as to what popular open source softwares are there, or like what are the things that you have been using till now and you did not know are open source. So let's first talk about Firefox browser. Now Firefox browser, which has been made by Mozilla. Mozilla is a company that was based on the foundations of open source, because they wanted things to be free on the internet. They did not want a monopoly or a duopoly, surfing the market and deciding every move of it. And Mozilla has always been giving to the community, and hence most of their projects that they do are also open source. Like one of their project is a voice where you can actually submit your voice, so that their AI can learn more about how dialects work and accents work, and they aim to make it better. Then there's a VLC media player that most of you might have installed but never knew. Many of you might have thought that this is a pirated software and we are using it for illegally. Well, it's not. It's free. You are not liable to anyone. Then we actually come to Linux kernels, Linux distros, right? Every Linux software is free. Everything on Linux is free. Okay. And yeah, like there are exceptions to it, but again, Linux is free. That's what everyone knows. Then comes Python and many other programming languages. And I think it's the best way for a programming language to actually work. The best way for them is to be open source. Like Python is very, popular right now because there are user libraries that people can add, similar to many other languages that are already popular. Then there's Blender. Blender is basically a 3D modeling and 3D modeling and animation software where you can model things, and you can find their code on GitHub as well. And they also participate in GSOC, if you know. Actually, Python, VLC Media Player, Blender, all of them are participants of GSOC almost every year. So that's something to look out for. And then there's Android. Android is again, though made by Google, an open source software. Moving on. We wanted to list down some ways to contribute to open source. And since there are two ways in which you can actually contribute and be a part of this community or just help out the community, are, there are direct ways where you can directly jump into the code and make some changes there. Like you can help them with the documentation of things. For example, if you find that a particular piece of software has a lot of things unexplained and you feel like you can explain something better, you can always reach out to them and help them make their documentation better. And, in the process of making the documentation, maybe learn about their APIs or learn about what tools that they are actually bringing onto the table, which in a way would actually, inspire you to learn more about how the code works and maybe eventually, contribute to the code. And that's where the feature integration portion of it comes. You see, when you are actively contributing to a code base, that would come under the umbrella of feature integrations. So many a times an app, if I take an example of an app might need some sort of button for you to go and share a different YouTube video from their app. And if you add that code and add that feature into that particular code base, then that would be called a feature integration. And same way, when you're reading through the documentation or you're just, dabbling into the code base and, trying out the software, you come across bugs, right? Now, many a times these bugs are actually, reported on the GitHub's issues wala page, where they actually list down what bugs are there or how, if you are a person who doesn't know how to fix that bug, you can just issue a particular and you can make an issue in GitHub, and that would be looked upon by the repo's authors, right? And maybe they can fix it later. So that is also a direct way of contributing. We actually come to the next big portion of the ways to contribute, and that is the indirect ways. So the first thing in it is the code reviews. This is something that, mostly the maintainers of a particular repository on GitHub, GitLab, or any sort of VCS do, right? Code reviews are essential because many a times people write code that is not understandable by other people. This is hence you should always comment your code properly, follow a particular guidelines of how to write proper readable code, so that other people can look into it and as well inspire that particular portion of them. Sorry, I'm using the word portion a lot, but yeah, basically go inside the code and actually understand, okay, this function is affecting this particular data type. This function is changing this module of the software, right? So that's code review. Second thing that people do is to test the software. And as I mentioned, that testing the software would eventually lead on you to finding bugs or finding some glitches or faults in the software that you are using. And in a way, actually, you reporting the bugs to the developers would help them. Then there is mentoring. Mentoring is usually done by people who are actually experienced with open source or just experienced with the field that they work in. And that's how many of them tend to contribute to this ideology and this community, right? So many such programs like Hacktoberfest has indirect use of mentors. Then there is Google Summer of Code, which actively needs mentors to mentor the student developers into completing their projects for a particular organization. Then there's many other such code programs like Outreachy has one, then Linux Foundation mentorship programs where people can actually opt in as mentors or mentees. The mentees work on the code, mentors help the mentees to work on the code, if that makes sense. And the other thing that you can do, which is the most obvious one, is publicizing the software and in a way helping the community around a code or around a software to grow more. For example, do you really think Subway Surfer would have reached its popularity if people hadn't marketed it, or people wouldn't have, publicized it? Wow, this is a good game. I know Subway Surfer is not an open source game, but the analogy still stays, right? So that is how it works. Moving on. Why GDSC? So as our leads also mentioned that it is a community where open source is at the heart of all the GDSCs that have participated here. And this was one of our motivations and motivators to actually go on and bring this event to you so that you can learn about it, and we'll be there to help you out at each and every step where you may require help. And that's where uh, we we are actually trying to build a community here where people can just come in, collaborate, innovate, and in a way become a part of something bigger than themselves. So you can actually join our communities by scanning the QR code if you want. And moving on, I pass it on to Hardik to, yeah, he'll basically explain you how to open a pull request and how to find Hacktoberfest and like proper repos where you can contribute. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Nachiket. I'll just take a quick second in order to open like all the windows which I need. So I'll stop sharing my screen as right now, and I'll be back in a minute. Right. I hope my screen is visible.
Yeah,
Can
it is.
anyone just?
Yes, Hardik, it's visible.
Thanks. Now that we have talked about what open source is, how even like how Hacktoberfest comes into context, we saw what Hacktoberfest is and how the contribution matters. Let's actually so now what I'll do is give a quick rundown as to how the whole PR process, how the whole pull request process takes place. So uh, the first things which we'll need to do is obviously look out for repositories to which we can contribute to. So in order to do that, you will need to visit like either your GitHub profile or like the standard github.com. Either way, anything is fine as long as you have the search bar listed on your website. So now what you need to do is start searching for repositories directly from your from the website itself. You can also do it in a similar fashion on a GitLab itself. But for now, I'll stick over to GitHub since I suppose this is what most of the people are going to use. Right. So one major, so now searching on GitHub takes place by using different topics or different tags. Right. So one major, one majorly important tag which we want to search for is going to be Hacktoberfest dash accepted. I'll also zoom in a little bit so that becomes a bit clearer. Right. So the first, the majorly important tag for us, which we are going to require in the repositories, is obviously going to be the Hacktoberfest dash accepted tag. And after that, you can choose to skip the other two tags, the Hacktoberfest 2021 and the Hacktoberfest tag if you want to. And I'll also do that since the primarily important tag is going to be this accepted one, right? And after that, you will need to start putting in topics regarding that, regarding the tech stack which is concerned for you. So I am an Android app developer, so I'll put in the tag Android. And I mean, these two tags are really sufficient for me to search for repositories. But if you are into web development, you might need to supply additional tags according to the tech stack you use. It could be React Native, it could be, some Python framework, whatever tech stack concerns you. But for now, as I said, these two tags or these two topics are enough for me, and I'll just hit enter. And now it would, yeah, right. So I'll just put in again and I'll especially chooses all GitHub, the second option. I'll need to make sure that this is highlighted, and only after that I should be pressing enter. Since if you choose the option in this user, it would only listing out your private or your personal repository. So that we don't really need to have that. Right. So now, if you can notice, we got about 55 search results, and all of these repositories which are listed have the specified topics which we needed. They have the Android topic and they have the Hacktoberfest dash accepted topic. So this way, one thing is ensure that whenever you will, contribute to any of these projects, at least DigitalOcean will recognize that it was like a valid PR. Either way, if it gets merged or not, that is totally dependent on the project maintainer and the project itself. But we have one piece of mind at GitHub is going to recognize that particular project as like a valid project. So the next thing is obviously going to be like the boring part, which I would say, like you need to just look for the projects which would probably interest you. So I'll skip over that since that is going to be variable with everyone. You need to look into different projects all by yourself in order to ensure what suits you and like what project you need to contribute to. So let's say I land on this particular repository. So again, I'll need to check if the particular topics are mentioned in it. And as you just saw that the topics, the Hacktoberfest dash accepted label is right here in the repository. So right now, now that I have finalized my project or the source code through which I would like to contribute to, I'll start getting a general feel of what the project is really. So right here, the README file says that this is like an app developed by the workshop, and I can see that the screenshot depicts that it is like a basic movie searching application, and the OMDB word actually is like comes from the particular API I suppose. Right. So next thing which I would do is start by cloning this particular repository to my local machine. So I'll just download the source code right here. And this is again going to be dependent on you. I mean, I'm just using the command line to clone my repository. You can also alternatively choose to download the project by directly using whatever version control software you are using. It could be a GUI software, or I mean, even your workflow, the software which you use in your development workflow can possibly have a feature to directly download the sources. So that is again going to be up to you. Okay, so the next thing which I'll do is open the project which I just downloaded. So I suppose this is going to be somewhere here, and right here now, as you can see, it is showing up. And I'll open it up in the software which I use. So right here, this is Android Studio. Since as I mentioned, I am an Android app developer. So this is what concerns me. But again, it might be possible that you use like the Visual Studio Code primarily. So the process is going to be same. Right? The first thing which you need to do is search for repositories, make sure that they have the particular label in it. And once that is done, the next thing which you obviously need to do is download the source code for the project. Right. So now that the source code is all loaded up, let me actually like run this on my device and get a general feel as to what this project is supposed to be. So I'll go ahead and connect my device. And yeah, so I'll start the compilation process, and I also simultaneously start sharing the screen. So it is much more clearer as to what is going to happen. So now we wait for the build process to take, and in the meanwhile, yeah, okay, so it actually loaded up very quickly. So now now that the software is actually running on my device, I can get a good look as to what it is supposed to do and how the whole software comes together. So let's try searching for some movies. So let me actually put in a keyword. Okay, so I'll search for Avengers. And okay, so this is loading up some search results related to Avengers. And okay, so let's me search again. And okay, so I suppose I'll need to change the whole keyword thing. So let me put in something else. Okay, so I can see as we know what the major role of this particular code base is, what this app is particularly doing. So now that I have gotten like a general a look and feel as to what the application does, the next thing which I'll do is I'll start digging into the source code, and like I'll basically start scouting the source code in order to find any place where I can like make changes, improve something, possibly fix a bug which might be arising. So I'll just quickly like open a bunch of files and have a look, just a visual look at them in order to see if something looks out of the ordinary. And I mean, realistically, this would take a lot more time, since you will be, going through the source code line, or most likely line by line, and making sure that everything which you're reading is getting understood by them. But let's say, but I mean, since I'm just going to demonstrate the process, I'll just open the this global.kt file directly. So now, if you'll see, we have like an API URL right here. So this is the URL for the particular API, and this is the API key for the website, which I suppose, right? So I mean, obviously the API requires some form of validation that is going to happen through API key, but hard coding the API key directly into the project sources is actually not a very good, I would say, development process, right? Since anyone can basically have a good look in the source code and find out the API key, and he or she might try to exploit it or start using it for their very own personal gain. And it is very much possible that the API key which you are supposed to be using, like the quota is finished for it, and you start getting weird errors in your project. So in order to counter that situation, what we do generally is that we replace, instead of like hard coding the key in the actual software classes itself, we move it to somewhere which is a bit more redundant in case of this development or the compilation lifecycle. So in Android's case, like when it concerns Android source code, we typically try to place all of our sensitive keys and everything in this particular build or grader file. So this way, the keys aren't really hard coded into the app itself, but they are more or less listed in this particular configuration file for the project. So I'll just quickly make that change, and I'll add in whatever line which I need to. So that it's going to be build config field. Then the type is going to be string. My variable name is going to be API key. And right next to it, I'll copy paste this ID to the field itself. So this would be something like, right. I mean, once again, I mean, this whole, okay, so I actually got an error. Think it should be above this particular line. Oh, well, let me see as to what the issue is.
This is basically half of the development process. You looking for
I mean,
bugs.
this
You
is
looking for
very
errors.
realistic while development. So I have a build config field, and I have my string word right here. Okay, I think I forgot to place commas. Yeah, that was the issue. Right. So right now it's synced correctly. So this is actually very realistic. I mean, you just need to dig into the source code and like start making some changes in order to make suitable improvements to it. Right. So now that I have actually linked my key, I mean, I've moved my key to the actual configuration file itself. I'll change this particular value to reference that config file of mine. So this would be in Android something like build config dot API key, and I suppose it should be reading it. Well, I'll just try to run it, and we'll see if it works or not. All right, so once again, let me connect my device. Yeah, okay, so the launch was actually successful. And once again, if I would share my screen, the whole application is going to still function in the similar way like it used to. But in a similar way, like I think it's trying to load the, yeah. So this is going to work exactly in the similar fashion as it was previously working. But now we have the added benefit that we actually made a valuable change to the whole source code, like moving or like removing the particular hard-coded keys to a separate file itself is actually something which you should be doing. I mean, irrespective of what domain you are working in. So I'll just let that be. Right. So I explained the what basically I just gave a typical scenario as to what sort of contribution you could make. So next thing which I would do is right. So I'll, now that I've already had a look at the change as to what the source code is and everything, I'll go ahead and fork this project. So you can fork it into your account, or if you have like some other particular like organization listed in your account which you are a part of, you can also do that as well. So I'll just fork it to my account right now. And as you can see, this basically created a repository in my under my account. Like, since this is my account right here, and this is the repository link to the original account listed below it. So then again, I just copy the URL, and now you can either do two things. So since we already downloaded the source code for the project, I'll just open it. Since you already downloaded the source code for the project, you can do two things now. You can go ahead and re-download the whole repository once again, since that would ensure that you have the repository or the source code which you have is going to pertain to your account. The particular repository which you fork. Or the second way, and in my opinion, the better way is to basically change the remote URL using the git command line. So I'll just demonstrate that command as well. So right now, if I would show that this is currently pointing to the original account right here, but I want to change this to my account. It should be something like this, like git@github.com, then followed by my username and the repository name, which is listed under my account, right? So in order to do that, you need to run the command git remote set dash URL followed by origin, and at the last parameter, you just need to paste the link to the repository under your account. So just to once again give a quick brief as to what this command is. So git is obviously our version control software. Then remote is like the command for the git program. Then set URL is the action which we are going to perform. Then origin is actually a field which corresponds to the GitHub URL. And for the last parameter, it is obviously going to be the URL to which the URL which the repository should be pointing to. And I'll just hit enter. And now if I would print the link for the repository again, now it is going to point to my account. Right, so, and git remote dash, just to recap, is the command which you use to print all the remote links which are present in the repository itself. So let's move on with it. So let's see, I modified two separate files. So one was this app/build.gradle, then one was this global.kt. You can obviously have whatever file you edited regarding whatever project you are going to contribute to, but I'll go ahead and add these files to start committing. And right, so now if I would run git status again, I have both of them staged. So I'll start committing. And one thing to note is that especially while trying to contribute to open source projects, every commit you are going to make should be self-explanatory at the very least. Right, so if I were to name this particular commit, I'll first of all mention the file which I changed. So it could be build.gradle, but in Android, we actually just try to mention Gradle. And secondly, I'll also mention the global file since that was also modified. So I have Gradle, global are the files which were modified by me. Then after following a colon, I'll write my message as what exactly I did. So since I moved the API key out of the global file into the Gradle file, I'll write move API key to Gradle configuration. Right. So this by itself is actually a pretty self-explanatory commit title. But additionally, I'll also go a step further, and I'll also write a commit message. So in order to write the commit message, you just need to add the dash and parameter again and write the commit message for it. So I'll write something like hard coding the API key in the source classes is not a good practice, and it could lead to unexpected situations. We move the API key to Gradle configuration in order to better manage and hide it. So this is just a sample description which I wrote about the changes which I made. So now I just commit it, and once that is done, I'll push my changes over to my repository. Right. So now if I'll hit refresh on this page, it will now show the comment which I made, and obviously I can go ahead and just have a better look as to what all changes which I did. And right here, I have my commit title and I have the message which I made. So you can obviously make the number of comments would depend as to what all changes you are going to do. I mean, right here, I only needed like a single commit to make the proper changes which I need to. But in a case where you are doing like a major refactor of the project, or you are trying to implement a feature into the code base, it is very much possible that all of your actions are going to be split into like separate commits, or like yeah, like separate commits. It could be that you have like 5 comments, 6 comments, even like it could go up in like tens of numbers. So, but well, like as I said, for us, the single commit is actually good enough for now. And now one thing, if you would have noticed, is that it is saying this branch is one commit ahead of like the noob Mario colon main. So this is actually a comparison being done between the original repository. So this is the original repository, and this is my repository. This is just a comparison result as to what exactly, like how different are they. Since my repository contains an additional commit, it is going to say that this branch is one commit ahead of whatever source repository you have, right? And either way, I mean, it is very much possible that in the for the meanwhile you were developing like a feature or anything, the original repository gets updated, then GitHub would say that this branch is like this commits behind that particular report. So that is something which you need to make sure as to whenever you are going to make a pull request, that the code base is going to be merged properly. And I'll also showcase that using like GitHub itself. But well, moving on, we have this contribute button right here. So now when you are very much sure that you have all the changes in place and you made all of the changes which you wanted to, the next thing which you will need to do is press the contribute button and choose open pull request. Right. So now it will just summarize the changes, and it would tell you if the changes which you made can be automatically merged in the main branch or not. So this actually corresponds to the whole branch merging process, and it would say whether or not you like the code base of your branch can be merged into the source branch or not. And if like some merge conflict occurs, it would it would be highlighted in yellow instead, and it would say that there are some issues with the merge process and or something. But that thing is, if possible, you should be able to like solve it personally on your end, because that would first of all save the time and energy of the maintainer itself, and you actually have much better chances of getting your pull request merged. But still, if in a situation where the branches are not able to get automatically merged, you can leave it out for the maintainer to do it accordingly. So, right. So once again, you can scroll down and have a look at the different changes you made. But I'm very much content with the changes I made. So I'll just hit the create pull request button. And now it would ask you to like fill in some basic information, as like give a title as to what exactly is your pull request pertaining to. So I'll make this a bit a bit better. So I'll just have it as a move API to Gradle configuration. Then for the description part, I can leave it to the same since it is reading from the comment which is just made. But in case of you making a change, which is modifying the user interface of an application or a website or any other project you are working on, it is actually a good process to also include like a screenshot or a screen record as to what all changes were made by you. So let's say, for example, like let's take the example for this particular app itself. So right here I have the so right here I have this particular image view. So that was for the this particular search result. So in case you change the size of it, or you do something that is regarding the visual content of the application, you should also be including a screenshot to demonstrate it properly. So that is one thing which you will need to do. And regarding pull requests, I also have some points listed. So let's actually have a look at these points as well, as like what a good pull request should be containing. So as mentioned, a good pull request must be having like proper comment changes with the self-explanatory messages. Then a clear intention must be provided for the changes you wish to propose. And with clear intention, what I mean to say is that the commits which we are going to make are directed towards one single idea or one single feature. It should not be that you have like two separate ideas which you are working on at the same time, and I mean that would just basically end up confusing the maintainers and other people who are going to look at your commits. So a clear intention must be there for the changes which you want to make. Then again, a self-explanatory description of the pull request. It is what this is like. Right here, you'll need to add some particular message for the commit itself, and for the change itself, like 5, 6 commits, you just need to summarize like so what all changes you did into this particular description part. Then additionally, as I mentioned, like a proper screenshot, a proper screen record should be there showcasing the changes if you made some changes to the visual aspects of your project. Then keep in mind that multiple pull requests from the same branch will get counted as one. And this is, I'll explain it to you right here. So right now, if I were to create a pull request, I'll actually go ahead and create it. Right. So right now, I just made a pull request into this original repository. And let's say I chose to work on the source code a bit more, like I go ahead and modify something else and I'll do some more changes. And so once again, what would happen is that right here I would be having additional commits. And as soon as I'll open a pull request again, having like as wait, I'll open this page right here as well, so I can talk more clearly about it. Right. So right now, the situation is that I already have an open pull request, and I make some more changes to the code base, and I choose to open another pull request on top of it. So what would happen is that this, like your previous pull request, would actually get overwritten by your newer pull request. So in place, you would be having like a single pull request, which would be having all the changes from the first pull request as well as the newer pull request that you made. So that is one thing which you will need to keep in mind. And obviously, if you need to, work on separate features, you should actually wait for the maintainer to merge one particular pull request of those before you start committing changes for the second feature or whatever bug fix which you are going to or planning to make. Right. Then the next point says that make sure to follow the formatting and indenting rules, which the original project implies. And this is specifically important to large-scale projects wherein they have like a very particular set of rules which you need to follow for indenting and commenting your code. And obviously, if you are not going to follow it, there is like barely any chance that the maintainers would actually merge it in the actual code base. That is one thing which you also need to keep in mind. Then try to be in touch with the project maintainer, and this is specifically important if you if you want to get your pull request merged, because that way you will be able to explain the features directly to him or her, and also you will be able to get some like valid feedback as to what are changes you make. And then again, try to be up to date with the suggested changes. Like if the let's say you're the maintainer made some suggestions to the pull request, and he or she wants to change wants you to change something, you should be doing that as soon as possible. And for the last point, always make sure your changes comply with the rules and regulations if there are any. So what happens is that almost all of the big projects actually have a license. So let's say, for example, I would open the Linux kernel. So suppose this is going to have a license. Yeah. So right here, if you where is license? I okay. So this is not having any license restricted, but I think I have a project which in which I mentioned license. So this was it, and nope, launch. Okay, so I think
licenses, right?
yeah, Yeah. So yeah, I mean, what I wanted to say is that like you just need to make sure that whatever code you are or like whatever changes you are making comply with the actual project license. I mean, that is basically what I meant to say. I was just trying to find a repository which actually had a license, but never mind that. And with that, I suppose, I mean, this was it from my side regarding the pull request process. And obviously, if your changes which you made are good enough, your pull request should be getting merged in the actual code base in no time. So that was all from my side, and I'll hand over to Ahmed, I suppose.
We do have a little more points to cover, which is that if you put your project as part of Hacktoberfest and you successfully merge 4 pull requests or take action on 4 pull requests, this time there is also credits for a maintainer as well. So you'll also get a swag pack as a maintainer. That is something to keep in mind. And about pull requests, there are 15 days for your pull request to mature, and after that your pull request won't be considered for the Hacktoberfest. So do keep that in mind.
So yeah, Ahmed, you can take over. If not, then
Okay, no issue, no issue. So basically now what we'll be having are technology-wise networking sessions. So Hardik, could you just change it to the next screen? Because our collaboration doesn't end here. We are having some breakout sessions for which I would request the speakers to send the links for the particular domains in the chat. And in whatever domains you guys are interested in, please do join there. And we are having expert speakers for every domain, and they'll give you some really good insights, and they'll also explain some of our projects that we have collected through our community members. And I also like to take this opportunity to thank all the community members for coming forward and sharing their repositories with us. It means a lot for open source contribution, and I hope maximum of you make a pull request through using our open source projects. And also you can keep in contact with the speakers to learn more about open source and the particular domain. So thank you. I'll be the speaker at AppDev along with Hardik, and I'm sharing the meeting link for the same.
I'll be the speaker for Python domain. It will basically cover many generalized projects that many people start off with, and yeah, sharing the link in a few minutes.
We already have links for the web development meeting, blockchain meeting, the cybersecurity meeting, app dev meeting, and Python meeting. So anyone who's interested in these domains, please do join. We also have the meeting for AIML now. So do join those meetings. And if you have any
we'll be
general
circulating
questions,
a feedback form also. Just putting out the sorry me area.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. And if you have any general questions about Hacktober, then we'll wait for 5 minutes here. Do raise your hand. We'll let you unmute. And surely join the individual sessions as well. Yes, regarding the timings, the sessions would be completely up to the speakers, and there will be just community bonding and project sharing there. So it could take anywhere from half an hour to even 1 hour if the speaker is comfortable with. And you can obviously leave it anytime you want.
I share the form, like feedback form right now then.
Yes, yes. Share the feedback form.
Yeah. Wrong, I'm sorry. Yeah, but that was a wrong name. Hello, Felix. Hi.
For the people who joined it just now, I just like to remind that we are having individual networking sessions for each and every domain mentioned in the PPT. So there are the links in the chat for every session. We are having expert speakers there. It will be a great opportunity for you to network and learn about the projects in depth. So do join there.